The biggest mistake that beginner developers make isn't choosing the wrong programming language. It isn't choosing the wrong code editor, and it's definitely not even writing bad code. The biggest mistake is spending months watching coding tutorials, feeling like you're improving, but never actually finishing anything yourself. The dangerous part is, even feel productive. You're taking notes, you're following along, you're writing code, and you might even be completing these entire courses. Then one day, you open a blank project without an instructor telling you what to do, and you realize that you have no clue where to start. I know that feeling because I went through it myself, and in this video, I want to explain why that happens, how tutorials can quietly hold you back, and the way that I think beginner developers should use tutorials instead. When I first started learning how to code, I honestly thought I was doing everything. I would look up a course on Python, JavaScript, or Java, or whatever language I was trying to learn at the time. The title would be something like, "Learn everything you need to know in 6 hours." And I would sit there and I would watch the whole thing. The instructor would create a variable, so I would create a variable. The instructor would create a function, so I created the same function. The instructor would talk about all these different topics from APIs, databases. I would look at the code and think, okay, I understand this. I would even sometimes predict what the instructor was going to type next. That gave me confidence. I really felt like I was becoming a real developer, like I was actually learning something. But what I didn't realize was that the tutorial was doing most of the difficult thinking for me. The instructor had already planned which project was going to be built. They already knew how the structure was going to be made. They already knew how many files to create. They already knew which functions to make. They even knew which mistakes to avoid. And most importantly, they already knew what the finished project was supposed to look like. I was just writing code, but I wasn't making any important decision. The problem became obvious, however, whenever I decided to build something on my own. I would finish a course, I would feel motivated, and I decided that I'm finally going to build my own project. So I would open my code editor, create a new folder, create a new file, and then I would just stare at my screen. Suddenly there was no instructor, nobody telling me which file to create first, nobody telling me whether I need a class, a function, a database, an API, or maybe even something completely different. I might have had an idea in my head, but I didn't know how to turn those ideas into steps. And if I finally got started, I eventually managed to run into an error. Not an error from the tutorials, a completely new error. Maybe my data wasn't being returned correctly. Maybe something was undefined. Maybe my database relationships were incorrect. Maybe the code ran, but I got a completely different result. And because the instructor had never shown that exact problem, I felt completely lost. This was the moment that I knew that something wasn't right. I had watched hours and hours of coding content, and without somebody guiding me or a tutorial, I could not build something even small from beginning to end. Following a tutorial can teach you syntax, introduce you to new tools, and even show you how a feature works. But real development requires something else. You're gonna have to be able to take a vague idea and turn it into smaller problems. You have to decide where to start first. You're gonna have to make choices that you're not sure if they're completely perfect or not. You have to research things that you've probably never even seen before. You have to solve problems that nobody has already solved for you in a video. And most importantly, you have to keep going when you're confused. That part isn't as fun as watching a tutorial, but usually that's where most of the learning is done itself. Tutorials are appealing because they remove uncertainty. When you're following along with a good instructor, you're almost always making good progress. Every few minutes, something new appears on the screen. A button works, page loads, data renders. The project's slowly coming together, and you get a constant feeling of achievement. But when you build your own project, progress becomes much less obvious. You might spend an hour trying to fix an error. You might write a bunch of code and then delete it all. You might realize halfway through that your original approach doesn't work anymore. You might even do a lot of research just at the end of it to not completely understand anything. This can make you feel like you're not learning at all. But in reality, you're practicing parts of development that tutorials usually hide. You're learning how to investigate. You're learning how to ask better questions. You're learning how to pattern recognize. You're learning how to recover from bad decisions. And you're learning how to move forward without having every answer. And this is something that's going to make you independent. This is where a lot of beginner developers get trapped. They finish one course and still don't feel ready, so they start another course. Then they find a more advanced course, then they switch languages. They find a new framework. Then a new tool becomes popular, so they start to learn that as well. They keep telling themselves, I just need to learn one more thing before I build my own project. But there will always be one more thing to learn. You will never reach a point that you know everything that you need before you start. Professional developers still look things up. They still read documentation, they still get stuck, they still make mistakes. The difference is that they don't wait until they feel completely prepared to get started. They get started and they fill in the missing pieces as they go. What finally helped me improve was building smaller projects. At first, I thought projects needed to be impressive. I thought I needed to build the next social media platform, a complete business app, or the next successful startup. But projects like that have too many moving parts for someone who's still learning fundamentals. So instead, I started working on smaller projects that I could finish. A basic calculator, a to-do list, an expense tracker, a program that reads data from a file, a website that uses a small API, a database that has a few related tables, nothing too groundbreaking. But every one of those projects forced me to make decisions. What information should I store? What should happen when a user clicks this button? How should I organize files? What happens when a user enters invalid information? How do I make sure that every feature is working the way it's supposed to? All those decisions are way more important than copying another 100 lines of code from another course. I'm not saying tutorials are bad. Tutorials are extremely useful. I'm saying that using tutorials as the final destination instead of using them as a tool is the main issue. Here's the better approach. Use a tutorial to learn one concept, stop the video, and then go implement that one concept in a project. For example, if you're learning how to call an API, do not go start another 3-hour API tutorial. Pick a simple public API and go build a small project with it. If you're learning databases, create a tiny application that saves data and then displays information. If you're learning authentication, add it to an existing project that you already have. The project doesn't need to be original, it just needs to require decisions from you. And when you get stuck, go back to tutorials, Google, documentation, AI tools, or whatever other information that you use. But search for the specific problem you're trying to solve. That changes the way that you learn. Instead of collecting random information hoping you need it later, you're learning something because your project requires it now, and information usually sticks better when you're using it to solve real problems that you're facing. Here's a simple system you can use. First, choose a project that you believe you can finish in 1 week. Not 6 months, not someday, 1 week. Second, reduce the project to its smallest useful version. Let's say that you want to build a fitness tracking app. The first version does not need accounts, social features, payments, AI, custom workout plans, and a mobile app. The first version could simply allow a user to enter an exercise, the amount of weight and repetitions that it did, and then display that as a list form. That's enough. Third, write down the 3 to 5 features that are required for the project to work. Anything outside that list is optional. Fourth, build one feature at a time. Don't try to design the whole system in your head before getting started. And fifth, finish it before starting another project. It can be ugly, it can be imperfect, it can still have features that you want to add. But get it to the point where you can say, this project works and I completed it. Finishing teaches you something that starting never can. When you finish a project, you experience the entire development process. You experience the excitement of the idea, the confusion of where to start, the frustration of bugs, the temptation to abandon the project, the feeling when the main feature finally works, and cleaning everything up to get the project to be complete. That entire cycle builds confidence. Not fake confidence from recognizing code in a tutorial, real confidence. It kind of comes from knowing I got stuck, I didn't know the answer, and I figured things out. Your next project will always be difficult, but you won't be starting from zero. You'll remember problems that you solved before, you'll recognize patterns, you'll know that being confused doesn't mean that you're failing, it's just part of building something. So if you're a beginner developer and you've been watching from tutorial to tutorial, this is your sign to take a pause. You do not need to stop learning, don't need to stop using courses, but you do need to give yourself a chance to struggle without somebody telling you every step. Do something small, make it simpler than you think it needs to be. Build the first version, break it, fix it, and finish it. Because you don't become a developer through completing playlists. You become a developer through taking an idea, working through confusion, and completing projects. So here's a challenge for you. Pick one project that you can build in 7 days, comment down below what that is, and come back in 7 days. I'll see you then.